There's a reason so many people look at Washington and think, no income tax, that is amazing. And honestly, that's one of the biggest reasons people reach out to me when they're considering Spokane. It sounds simple, it sounds clean, and it sounds like an automatic win. But here's what people don't know until they dig deeper. Washington makes up for that missing income tax in other ways, and a lot of those taxes hit your wallet in places most newcomers don't expect. Today, I want to walk you through the full picture, the things nobody puts on the brochure. We'll cover the taxes that actually affect everyday life here in Washington, and then we'll zoom specifically into Spokane so you can understand what's unique to living in this city. And by the time we're done, you'll have a much clearer sense of how Washington's tax structure really works. I'm Haydn Halsted, your Spokane real estate resource, and if you're thinking about buying, selling, or relocating anywhere in the Spokane area, you can always call, text, or email me. All my information is down below. And while you're here, make sure to like and subscribe and use the link in the description to join my weekly newsletter where I share everything new and happening across Spokane. So let's start with the big misconception. People hear no income tax and assume Washington must be a low tax state. And depending on your situation, that can absolutely be true. For high income earners, remote workers that are trying to get more out of their salary from where they're currently at, or retirees that want their retirement to go as far as possible, having no income tax is a huge win. But Washington isn't a low tax state, it's a differently structured tax state. Instead of taxing your income directly, the state spreads taxation across a whole range of categories: sales tax, real estate excise tax, fuel taxes, estate taxes, business taxes, and a handful of local add-ons that vary from city to city. And once you understand that structure, everything else suddenly makes a lot more sense. So for example, one of the first things people feel right away is the sales tax. Washington's base rate is 6.5%, and then each county and city layers on its own portion on top of that. So here in Spokane, most purchases end up right about 9%. So you buy a $2,000 couch and you're paying close to $180 in tax. Groceries and prescriptions are exempt, but most everyday purchases aren't. Can't tell you how many relocation clients have told me, I knew about the income tax part, but nobody warned me about how high the sales tax is. And then there's property tax, which operates a little differently than in some other parts of the country. Washington bases property tax on assessed value, not what you paid for your home. So in Spokane County, you'll usually see an effective rate somewhere around 0.9 to 1.1%. So if your home is assessed around $500,000, you can expect to pay roughly $4,500 to $5,500 a year. Now, people ask me all the time, like, how do they determine the value? And they only come around to your house, like take a physical picture of it once every 4 years or so. And then they just use an algorithm to determine how much they think your house went up or down in value within that time range. And so they don't even see the inside of the house, they only see the outside of the house. So I've seen quite a few places, especially on the South Hill right now, where assessed values sometimes are more than the market value of a property, more than what I could sell it for on the MLS. I've had clients try and fight it, and it is a hard fight to win, but it can happen, especially if they're overtaxing you by an extreme amount. But the tax that surprises people the most, without question, is the real estate excise tax. I've had multiple sellers who used to live in places like Texas or California look at their settlement statement and say, why am I paying this? And it's because in Washington, when you sell your home, you pay an excise tax based on the sale price, not your profit. And so for most homes under $3 million, the rate lands somewhere between 1.1 and 2.75%. It's structured in a similar way to income tax, where like the first maybe 0 to 100,000 is at one tax rate, and then the next 100 to 250,000 is at another tax rate. So they all stack up on each other. The higher your property's value is. Similar to when you're in a 24% tax bracket, it's not all of the income, it's just that certain portion above a threshold. So if you're selling a home for about $600,000, you would pay roughly $9,700 in excise tax at closing in the city of Spokane. So it's taken straight out of your proceeds. You don't write the check, escrow takes care of it, but you will absolutely feel it because it's going to dig into your net profit quite a bit. And by the way, if you're curious what your net profit would be in today's market, if you wanted to access your equity or anything like that, you can use the link down in the description to get a quick estimate on your home value, and then I can reach out and run a net sheet based on how much you still owe on your mortgage and after paying fees like the excise tax, things like that. So now if you're self-employed, run a small business, or work as a contractor, there's another tax that tends to catch people off guard, and that's Washington's B&O tax, business and occupation. Unlike most states, Washington doesn't tax business profits, it takes gross revenue before expenses. So most people fall into a rate around 1.5%, though it varies by industry. So if you're a consultant or you run a home-based business or you're a 1099 contractor, that tax shows up right away. And for a lot of new residents, it's one of the biggest hidden taxes they didn't know existed. There are a few more taxes worth mentioning because they do affect long-term planning. Washington has an estate tax that applies to estates above roughly $2.2 million. That's increasing to $3 million here soon. The tax rate ranges from 10 to 20% depending on the size of the estate. And if you own multiple properties or if you've built up a business, this is something people start thinking about early. And that may sound like a ton of money, but for somebody that's in their like 70s and 80s that's been saving and investing over a long period of time, I think you'd be surprised at how many people that actually impacts. It's not just the wealthy. For a lot of people, that's a very comfortable retirement, but that's not the most lavish retirement by any means. There's also a long-term capital gains tax that kicks in on profits above $275,000 for certain asset sales. Real estate is not included in that right now, but it is something investors keep their eye on. When this policy took effect, some high-earning residents and business founders left the state because just long-term, the numbers weren't going to work for them any longer. And just a quick reminder, if you like staying updated on Spokane's housing market, policy changes, and local development, you can join my weekly newsletter using the link below. But now let's zoom in a little closer and talk about taxes that are specific to Spokane, because these are the ones you feel in your daily life. The first category is utility taxes. Spokane adds taxes to the water, sewer, garbage, and there's other taxes for electricity and natural gas. But currently the city of Spokane is at a 21% tax rate on the water, sewer, garbage bill, and they're actually supposed to vote tonight if they're going to increase that by another 0.5%. So these aren't unusual for a city of our size, but they do add up, especially in the winter months when utility usage climbs. We also have public safety and EMS levies, voter-approved measures that helped fund police, fire, and emergency services. These renew periodically and form part of your property tax structure. There are also several local initiatives tied to housing, homelessness, redevelopment, and neighborhood improvements. These tend to show up as small increases within existing levies or as targeted taxes on things like construction or specific types of development. Most recently would be that Together Spokane initiative that will end up acting like a tax, which for the average homeowner in the city of Spokane will add about $8 a month in taxes. And the downtown paid parking tax proposal is still floating around. If it's eventually approved, it would add a 12% tax to paid parking in a surface lots in downtown and a 6% tax on parking garages. The vote has officially been delayed until April of 2026, so nothing changes right now, but it's something to keep an eye on because it could influence how downtown evolves over the next few years. So when you take all this together, what does it really mean for someone living in Spokane? Well, it means Washington delivers its tax structure in a different way. There's no income tax up front, which is incredibly attractive to a lot of people, but many of the costs show up later. Through sales tax, excise tax when you sell a property, the B&O tax for business owners, utility taxes, fuel taxes, estate planning considerations, and occasional local levies. For some people, the trade-off is absolutely worth it, and for others, it's just important to plan ahead so none of these things catch you off guard. And that's really the point of this video, understanding the full picture so you can make an informed decision about buying a home, selling a home, or moving to Spokane in general. If you found this helpful, hit the like button and subscribe. It helps the channel more than you think. And if you're thinking about buying, selling, or relocating, you can call, text, email me anytime. All of my information is down below. And don't forget to jump into my weekly newsletter. No spam, just helpful updates, market insights, and what's new around town. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.